Galip, we'll start with you. What are Turkey's intentions in northern Syria? Is it going to launch a ground attack?
Well, I think that Turkey's intention is precisely what President Erdogan has been saying. Like, one thing about President Erdogan, usually he did what he said that he will do. Thus far, his intention is clearly to do another military operations. And firstly, it will be an airstrikes, but I think the intention is to undertake another military operations as well. So that has been the goal for quite some times. But obviously, the regional and international politics will define the nature and then the depth of any such operations, because the US and Russia are major players in the other side of the border. So therefore, like, for any ground invasions, for any ground operations, the US and the Russian factors will feature heavily in the conversation.
Okay, Mahjoub Zoueri, if Turkey were to begin a ground offensive in northern Syria, would it be legal under international law?
As you know, this is a conflict zone, and basically Turkey has indicated many times that it will not allow any kind of threat to its stability, regardless from where. I think the issue here is not about international law will accept or not. It's about how country perceives what's happening. I think Turkey is looking at what happened in Taksim area in Istanbul 2 weeks ago as a crossing the red line, and basically the YPG are responsible of that, and I think they try to send a clear message that this should not happen, and we will not allow this to happen again. This happens, as you know, in a context where the whole issue of Syria is being putting aside, because basically the most important players, and here I talk about Russia and Iran, they have different issues they are busy in, and Turkey does not want to be left alone with the crisis on their border. So I think the Turkish perception that the crisis is behind my backyard and I cannot leave it without action.
Does Erdogan care what his ally, the US, thinks?
Well, I think, for sure, it will care what the US says, but in the end, the decision will be made in Ankara. Obviously, there's a US presence there that will turn into a major crisis, probably in the relationship if and when another military operation takes place. Let's not forget that 2019, that created a major storm in the US-Turkish relationship. But at the end of the day, the Ankara will probably make its decision based on its own consideration and based on its own concerns. So yes, what US says is a factor. What Russia says is a factor. Probably, I will say the Russian factor is at this stage even more important than the US factors, given the geographical location for which the Turkey is planning to undertake an operation. So therefore, I would say that what Russia also cares is a major factor. But I think that the Turkey would be willing to have a major crisis in its relation with the US if this is what it requires for it to undertake the operations.
Well, Lawrence, you wanted to come in there on that particular answer about whether President Erdogan particularly cares about what the US thinks about what's going on in his own backyard.
No, I don't think he does, because he has shown he can act independently of us. He bought Russian air defense missiles. And in the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, he didn't care what we thought. No, I think he sees this as an existential threat, particularly after the November 13th bombing.
Mahjoub, if Turkey did go into northern Syria, how would Russia react? It would be very vocal about it, very disapproving, but there's very little it could do.
Absolutely, they have nothing actually to stop it. I think they are a statement already. They are not happy of this. But let's remember the point I have raised already. Russia wants to have a good ties with Turkey, especially at the moment where Turkey is securing a good communication line between Russia and the West, especially when it comes to the issue of energy. And they hope that this kind of line will continue as long as this conflict is going on. At least this is the minimum of the communication that Russia have with the international community.
Lawrence Korb, as you were telling us, the US not at all happy at the prospect of a Turkish ground offensive in northern Syria, not least because there are US forces operating on the ground there. How would the US pressure President Erdogan then not to go ahead with his plans? Would it be done through diplomatic channels, or, given that Turkey's economy is still in a bit of a mess right now, I mean, could it introduce sanctions, do you think, against Turkey?
Well, I think it could use everything that it has short of military force, because it does not want to see a Turkish invasion of Syria, because that would create all kinds of problems. It could lead to a war between Iran and Syria. Obviously, the Israelis would get involved. The United States made a decision under the Obama administration not to get involved in Syria's civil war. But if Turkey goes ahead and invades there, it's going to be very hard for us to stay out of it. And as you mentioned, we've already got American troops there. They're not getting involved in the civil war. They're still trying to deal with ISIS and the threats to Iraq. And as I mentioned before, we're hoping that Turkey can play a constructive role in getting negotiations going over the Ukrainian civil war. Remember, in July, even at the height of the Ukrainian war, basically Russia in Moscow had the Turks and the Syrians together to try and come up with some sort of solution. But their position is weakened because of what's happening in Ukraine.